Hi, I'm Whack.
Hi, and I'm Pat. Thanks for joining us for another episode of The Weekly Orbit. This week ending February the 9th, this is where we're going to squeeze in all the news and commentary of Rocket Pool of the last week in just 30 minutes. And we've got a lot to cover this week, Whack. So I got to ask you, who is your biggest fan, Sylvia? You hinted
Sylv-
at earlier this
Syl-
week. Is she tuning in? That's what I want to know.
yeah, Sylvia is probably watching. So hi, Sylvia. But I can't really say too much about her because she's my number one fan, and I don't think she really wants that information out there. But it was really heartwarming to learn about Sylvia being my number one fan this week. It actually made me smile a lot, and I shared the message of Sylvia being my number one fan with a few people, and just was like really touched about it. So that was really nice thing that happened this week for me.
Wow. Well, I hope that, I get a mailbag, I'll go through my mailbag and see if I have any like super fans, and I'll share if I have any, but so far none.
You're gonna have super fans for your like hidden acting skills that we learned about this week. I think that's what people
Oh
really want to
yeah.
know about. You're like superstar Hollywood actor now. Like what's going on there?
Well, if there's A-listers and there's B-listers, I'm probably down at like W or Y or Z lister. So yeah, for those wondering, yeah, I do some acting on the side here and there, mostly, commercial or, background. But there's a
Yeah,
couple movies that are out that I am in. If
that's
you're
right.
wondering,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
one's called Puppet Man. You can get it on Shiver. It's a horror flick. I'm the executioner
Nice.
of this prisoner. Yeah, I remember when it was we were filming that in this. It was in the middle of February and it was super cold. Like in the dressing room, you could see your breath,
Mm.
and we were in this cell block, and I remember it was just really cold. But the other
And
movie's coming out next. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, did you have a speaking part in as the executioner?
I make all kinds of grunting noises because
Okay.
he I put into this spell.
Mm.
It's because I'm about to inject him, and he thinks he has this power that's because he's a murderer, right? He thinks he has
Mm.
this power, but it's actually his daughter who's got the power, and she's witnessing
Uh,
the execution. So she has the power on me, and I'm like,
I
and he's like, yeah, yeah, you think you're so tough, huh? And then all of a sudden, she lets it go, and I inject him. So just a bunch of grunting.
what about in the other movie that's upcoming? Why didn't
Cabrini.
you?
So
Yeah.
Cabrini's coming out in March, and that's actually a really big movie. It was a $40 million production,
Mm.
and I filmed about 13 scenes where I was background. So I was Cabrini is a Catholic nun in the late 1800s in New York City, and the stories about her and her trials and tribulations of being an Italian woman
Yeah.
fighting the power structure in New York and helping out with the Italian immigrants and creating an orphanage. So it was really fun because the costumes and the production sets were incredible, and I was a wealthy American, a doctor, a newsman at the New York Times, and a Italian senator. So I got to play a whole bunch of roles.
Nice.
So I'm just in the background, basically, folks. If you stop the movie and you squint, you'll be able to see the side of my head, that type of thing. But
Nice.
it's really fun stuff. Um,
Wonderful. Okay, well,
yeah.
take me as your plus one to the premiere in LA when it happens.
Okay. Yep. So on to the Rockapool stuff. We've got a lot to cover. So we've been hinting at some big topics over the last month, and we're going to go into a little depth on them this week. We're gonna not do our usual stats because we don't have much time to get through all this. So we want
Yeah.
to go over the Rapid Research Incubation awards that were handed out by the GMC. And pardon me, as we can see here, Whack, we've got Valdorff came in with a score of 3.87 for bond curves. Then Samus came in with his their proposal of 3.6, and it's called diverted rewards. And then Epineph came in at 3.6 for universal variable commissions. We're going to cover those top three, and then as you can see, We had quite a few submissions, which was really good to see. This goes, how many do we have here? About what,
22.
15? 22.
22. Yep.
Yeah. And so
Epineph had 7 of those, I think, or 8 of those, but
okay.
22 submissions, which is really cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
There's a lot of brain power that went into this. I'm really impressed. And that's why I want to talk about it with you, Wack, because some of this stuff gets into some weeds and we need to break it down for our listeners. So you did that on your Reddit. You posted a summary of the results. Do
Yeah.
you want to talk about your Reddit post here?
Yeah, so what I've been doing on Reddit, like ETH Finance is like one of the best communities on Reddit for Ethereum as a whole. And they have a love-hate relationship with Rocket Pool because we're kind of like zealous and because just who we are. And obviously, I think a bunch of people kind of got in around Atlas and they're kind of salty that the price has gone down since then. So there's like a little bit of FUD, a little bit of negativity. So I like to go in there, and I've been a member of ETH Finance for a really long time, like since 2019, I want to say 2020. But I was like lurking even before ETH Finance existed when there was still ETH Trader in like 2017 and 2018. So ETH Finance is a really cool community, but like I said, some of there was a bit saltiness about Rocket Pool. So what I like to do is I like to go in there, and whenever there's like an update about Rocket Pool, I like just share it with the community there, and they're really well responsive to like the things that I have to say, and like people kind of like respect what I say, and I get into like positive discussions with people and stuff as well. So like I love that community. It's wonderful. So every once in a while I go there and I like tell them what latest news Rocket Pool is. And with this rapid research incubation result, that was one of those times when I went there and I told them that, hey, look, we've got the results of this out. This is the prizes that people were giving out, and this is the research for which they got the prizes. So I just said that, we had 22 submissions in total, and these are the top ones. And then I talked about Val's bonding system and Samus's ETH-only validators, pretty much, and then Epineph's universal variable commission. And then there's some others as well about ETH-only validators and like how that's going to work. And then I kind of ended the post by saying, the next step is kind of putting these together into a cohesive tokenomics plan and kind of seeing which ones work, which ones don't work, and kind of gathering them up and putting them together and making the case to the community that this is what the next set of tokenomics should look like. And I said that the with this tokenomics, I like to throw a little bit of hype at the end. I said with these tokenomics, the scope of growth for Rocket Pool will be absolutely like astronomical. And I was talking about how the balance of like node operator, lack of node operators like we are right now will shift a lot to then needing to like massively promote rETH because there'll be so much space for rETH to mint rETH. And then I kind of like teased the finish by saying I'll bring some news about Rocket Pool and Eigenlayer integration, which we're going to be talking about a little bit later. But that was kind of like the gist of the post. And then there were like little snippets of summaries of the winners, the big prizes. But I guess we can spend a little bit of time looking at those a little bit more closely.
Sure. Now, before we start, this is kind of a high level question. As the community, are we going to pick one of these? Are we going to could we combine a couple, or does it depend?
No, I think it's definitely going to be a case that, we're going to be combining a few, even some of the ones that didn't win the big prizes, or there might even be some new ideas that we haven't, come across yet that might end up going into like the new tokenomics. What will happen is like, the ones that we're going to be talking about right now, they're addressing like different issues. So one of them is Val's, the one that he won the number one prize for, is addressing the issue of sublinear bonding, right? And then with others, it's addressing the issue of RPL collateral. With the other one, it's addressing like incentivizing rETH minting and stuff like that. So what will likely happen is that people will like go away and put together like a vision of what they think the tokenomics will be like a full cohesive image. And what they'll do is probably that they'll pick and choose pieces from different people's proposals, and with that information they'll come up with like kind of one cohesive idea, and then they'll share their vision with the community, and then the community will be like, yeah, we really like this aspect of like wax suggestions, and we really like this aspect of pat suggestions, and then we'll kind of work on tweaking them before putting it
Hmm.
to a vote for the community for it to be like what happens in Saturn. Of course, one thing that we have to keep in mind as well is like, what is the team actually capable of coding? Because the more complicated the update is, then the harder it will be to code it to make it happen. So it might be that then that might potentially, I don't know for sure, of course, I'm just speculating here. It might be that, we don't get everything at once. It might be that that's broken up into further updates. Like, we'll get A and B now, but C and D might come 6 months down the line just to make it a manageable upgrade for the team. But that, I don't know
Sure.
how that's going to work out yet.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
so the first one we're going to cover is Val bonding curve.
Yeah.
He's got some charts, and the concern I think going into it is what is the lowest someone could bring in terms of a mini pool
Yeah.
without posing a risk to our ETH and the rest of our rocket pool. How
Yeah.
low can we lower that? And so that's what these charts are really showing. If we go down here to the his suggested numbers, okay, so he outlines like 3 different scenarios. One he labels aggressive, and this would be where your first mini pool is an LEB6, and thereafter you can do LEB 1.5s, because that means you could have only 6 ETH to start and then just 1.5 ETH after that to open up additional mini pools. The second is, he calls it the alternative aggressive, which is the first 2 mini pools are LEB4s and thereafter LEB 1.5s. Okay, and then the last one is called a bit safer. The first 6 mini pools must be LEB4s, and then after that, you could allow LEB2s. And he provides a return on investment versus solo staking. And this is so what we're looking at here, if you're watching, is on the left-hand side, there's a chart showing the return on investment in units of solo APR. And if you look at even the safest one, we're looking at depending on how many mini pools you have, you could have at least 2.75 times the solo APR. Whereas if we went aggressive, you're looking at potentially 3.5 times the return as a solo validator. So that's pretty awesome in terms of your return. And this,
Yeah.
of course, I kind of skimmed over, but Val did the analysis of like, what's the worst case scenarios of risk? And basically, these 3 mitigate that risk to a point where it's acceptable. If there was some, node operator who was acting maliciously, or there was abandonment, the person died and their node just started leaking out. So he's run all the numbers, and this is what he's come up with. Any thoughts?
Yeah, the big worry is MEV theft, right? So that's the key concern, and 8 ETH seems to be like a really good number to mitigate MEV theft, which is why we have LEB 8s right now. So what
Mm-hmm.
Val is suggesting is, if we get forced exits, we can actually go a little bit further. And what we can do is go down to your first validator being an LEB 6 or potentially even an LEB 4. And I think like LEB 4 with forced exits is a good spot, because even the conservative standard that he has, it starts at 1 LEB 4 to begin with. So that already will open up Rocket Pool to a whole bunch of other people. Now, going further than that though, because it's going to be node level collateral and not validator level collateral like we have now, it means that if a person misbehaves on any of their validators, all of their validators can be punished to like regain the cost that they've incurred on the protocol. Now, eight ETH is that magic number, right? Because that's like kind of the sweet spot there. So with Val kind of crunching those numbers, he thinks like the first one could be a 6, and after that you can have 1.5s, or the first one can be 4, and then after that you can have the first 2 can be 4s that'll get you to 8, and after that you can have 1.5s. I think there'll always be some collateral, and I think 1.5 is kind of like the sweet spot number there. That would be like as low as you can go basically per validator. Now, after that, it makes it this, like when you start to think about what the outcome of this will be, it's truly mind boggling. And let me just give you an example, right? So if you run 4 validators, LEB8s, and you've got 32 ETH, now with that 32 ETH, what you're doing is you're allowing the minting of 120, no, 96 more RETH, because each validator brings 24, right? So sorry, 72 RETH. So that's no, there's 4 validators, so it's 96 RETH. Sorry, I'm doing math on the fly. However,
Yeah.
so that's really good. Like that's a really good like efficiency. Like it's a lot better than the validator 16s that we used to have before. But with this one, if you have 32 ETH, your first one will be a 6, and after that you've got 1.5s. That means you can run, let me think, 20, about 10 validators instead of 2 validators, like, or 4 validators that you have now. There's actually more than that, about 15 validators. So the amount of ETH that be bringing to Rocket Pool is over like 250 ETH. Like the numbers are just amazing about how much scaling this will allow. And this is like within the limits of what's easily capable by the protocol now with forced exits. So one of the reasons why this won the prize is because Valve's really showing that the profitability of having 32 ETH staked, right, like under this system, will be like 3 times higher potentially than solo staking. And the key number that we really want to beat is Lido's, community staking module, their CSM number, which is going to be around 1.6 times. 1.6 times solo staking. So that's the number we have to beat, basically. So what happens then is, right now we have a commission of 14%. So it most likely will be that the commission gets tweaked down. So, the Rocket Pool node operator is like, 1.7 times, 1.8 times more profitable than solo staking, which is nearly double. But then the commission goes down as well. So this is what I mean. Like, there'll be tweakings that happen. But this is like extremely exciting. And, Val totally deserved first prize for this.
So in this proposal, let's talk about, you still have to use RPL as collateral, correct?
Yeah, in this proposal, you'll still be using RPL. Actually, I don't think it's mentioned in this proposal about the RPL collateral. Like it's an aside here. This is just about ETH and ETH
Right.
returns only. Yeah,
Right. So you still have to put up at least 10%. So if you put up an LEB4, you'd still have to make sure
like
you had
2.8
10% going.
ETH, 2.8 ETH of RPL. But that's if nothing else changed. We only had this,
Correct.
and everything else stayed the same, which it's not going to.
Right. Correct.
Yeah,
So let's
because
move on to our
Samus
second
here.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah, Seamus.
yeah,
It's Seamus. Seamus. That's a good Irish name. It's
Seamus. Yeah,
Seamus, not Samus.
okay, that's
Well,
funny.
yeah,
Yeah,
being an Irish guy myself.
Seamus. Okay.
Yeah, so Seamus, they, I should say, we don't know.
Yeah.
So he talks about commission cut proposal. And the summary is that this idea introduces ETH only mini pools, which is a big interest for many, where a portion of the rewards are diverted to RPL staked mini pools. So, as an example here, you start off by offering node operators the same product as Lido CSM, which is a 4 ETH bond and 7.5% commission on the other 28 ETH. For an RETH holder, the commission could remain at 14%, leaving 6.5% on the 28 ETH per mini pool to be diverted to RPL staked mini pools. So I think the summary here, Whack, is, hey, if you don't want to put up RPL, you don't have to. However, if you do, you're going to get more rewards. You're going to get part of that commission. And I guess if you have lots of people doing ETH only,
Mm-hmm.
then that means it's going to be really profitable to run an RPL collateralized node. On the
Yep.
other hand, if not many people do ETH only, that means that it's going to be like this nice balance, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
market forces determine, what does the market want? Does it want just ETH only mini pools? If that's the case, you're going to post RPL, you're going to get really handsomely rewarded. Is that
Yep.
a good summary?
Yeah, pretty much. And again, like, the commission rate here is really interesting because when you put this against Val's proposal, like that came in first place that we just talked about, the tweaking of the commission will be really interesting to see how that works out. And then this brings up other questions as well about actual RPL inflation. So there's been the idea is that you reduce the inflation of the token itself, so that gives more values to people who are just holding RPL, because at the moment they're being diluted by 5% a year. And then by reducing the inflation, then you'll start getting ETH only rewards as an RPL node operator instead of RPL rewards. So that might be more attractive to some people.
Mm-hmm.
However, there might still be some inflation, and you might still get RPL rewards and boosted ETH rewards. We don't know how that's going to look exactly yet, but this is a really interesting suggestion. A whole bunch of people suggested different methodologies of coming up with ETH only validators,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't need to put any bond for RPL. And then there's a common question, right? Like, if you have a validator that doesn't require RPL, isn't that going to impact the price of the RPL token and make it less attractive? But the idea, the counter to that is like the potential growth of of Rocket Pool will be so substantial that, like, the RPL people who want to stake RPL, their value will increase a lot more. And the protocols as a whole value will increase. So those people will still be getting value, and RPL token will still be getting value. Hopefully, just as much as it is now in terms of rewards, but potentially even more in some situations, like you were saying, depending on how things balance out. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be something really interesting to keep an eye on as well. And I really think that, these two proposals are definitely going to find it into Saturn in one way or another. So we will definitely, I'm like 99.9% sure that we'll have sublinear bonding that Val suggested. And then I'm pretty sure that we'll have some kind of ETH only validator, but I'm not exactly sure as I am about the sublinear bonding.
So something just occurred to me is, does this Seamus's proposal, is it a direct competitor to NodeSet? Where your NodeSet's kind of a similar thing. Hey, you don't want to post RPL, you don't have to. If you do, so you can use NodeSet. Does this compete directly with NodeSet?
I think NodeSet will also have this aspect where people just don't want to stake themselves and they still want to get boosted rewards. So it will be boosting the boosted rewards from NodeSet. So NodeSet's model, as far as I know, like, I haven't seen the full final breakdown of what it's going to look like, is like you will deposit your ETH into NodeSet, and then you will
Yep.
get a full staking rewards. You won't be paying any fees for that. So, like with Lido, you pay 10%, with
Right.
Rocket Pool, you pay 14%. Like, you won't be paying any fees for that. So you'll be getting the full staking reward. And the way NodeSet node operators will make the money is by taking the collateral percentage of the reward percentage off the top of that boosted reward. So for them, it'll still be higher rewards than just minting our ETH, even more
Yeah,
so
and I
even.
guess it's a
Yeah.
different market they're going after. They're
Mm-hmm.
going after someone who wants a liquid staking token,
Yep.
whereas this is marketing towards node operators.
Node
Like,
up.
you want to run your own rig, you want to do it
Exactly.
yourself. So
Yeah.
we got two different cohorts of people.
Yeah.
Great. All right, and the third one we're going to talk about is Universal Variable Commission by Epineph.
Yeah.
Do you want to walk us through this one?
Yeah, so the TLDR version of this is that right now we have a full deposit pool, and that deposit pool is not earning any rewards, so it's a drag on the APR. So the way that this proposal kind of like addresses that is by tweaking the commission rate as a universal variable commission. So it will always be like changing month by month depending on what the state of the stake is, if that makes sense. So if the deposit pool is full, what we'll start doing is charging more commission of our ETH holders, and then that will bring more node operators online to try to, like, get that extra reward, right? However, if the
Mm-hmm.
deposit pool is empty, then we can reduce the commission on our ETH, because then node operators, they don't need to be incentivized as much because we've got too many node operators. So this will be then kind of like tweaking those numbers, like month by month, or like week by week. I'm not exactly sure how frequently you'll be doing it. We don't know that yet, but and Epineph here gave a few ranges, like maybe commission could go down to 0, or all the way up to 30%, or maybe 5% to 20%, or 10% to 18%. Whatever we kind of want to target as a value, and depending on what the protocol wants. So the idea is really cool. Like, a lot of people are really interested in this. They really think that it's going to help, like, kind of balance the protocol. But the numbers, again, are something that we need to decide on, and like the frequency and all that kind of stuff.
So we had, when our Rocket Pool first launched, we did have kind of a dynamic commission system. went from anywhere from 5% to 20%. So
Yeah.
is this similar to that?
No, so there's one fundamental difference in this. For that one, what had happened is you were locked in at that commission rate when you set up your validator for the life of the validator. So a whole bunch of people started gaming the system, and they'd only spin up validators when there was 20% commission available. So, you'd see this happen quite often is like people would wait for those higher commission levels and then do a burst of validators. The commission would come down, then they'd wait for the commission to go up again, then they'd do a burst of validators. So people were kind of gaming the system there. With this one, what would happen is everybody would get the same RETH rewards. So there wouldn't necessarily be a gaming aspect to it because your rewards would go up and down based on what the dynamics of the protocol was. So
And it'd be adjusted monthly, right?
I think that's what
According to this.
Epineph was here saying was that it would be adjusted monthly, but that of course can be changed. It can be weekly. It could be, I don't think daily, but maybe weekly, maybe monthly, maybe bi-monthly. Like we don't know yet. We can figure out how that would work on the smart contract side.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, these are all just fabulous proposals. All of them bring really great strengths. Combining some of them, or there's several others we haven't covered, but it really is exciting to think about the changes that Rocket Pool will see. Hopefully, now let's talk about timeframes. These would be going into perhaps with the first version of Saturn
No,
towards the
Saturn
end of
2.
Saturn 2. So we're looking at
Because
next year.
we're looking at, in the best case scenario, like the end of this year. More likely scenario, and this is just from me, like speculation, I think it'd be Q1 2025. And the reason for that is because we'd need forced exits on the Ethereum level to be able to do this. That's going to go into the Petra upgrade. And the best case scenario for Petra upgrade is Q4 of this year. So it all depends on what happens with Petra. If Petra gets bigger on the Ethereum side, it'll take longer to do, which means Saturn 2 will take longer to come through. So Saturn 1...
Do we need, so that's EIP 7002, I think, is forced exit,
7002.
right?
That's right.
Now there's talk about like signed, you can sign, when you sign up for that, you can sign a message saying, I'm willing to be forced exited. Is that a kind of a temporary fix that could be used, or does it have to be EIP 7002?
Yes, that can be a temporary fix that can be used. However, it adds massive centralizing force to the protocol because it's very, very, very difficult. I don't think it's a solved problem at the moment to do in a decentralized way. So NodeSet, I think from my understanding, is they'll be doing it in a centralized way. Stader have a system of forced exits at the moment for their 4 ETH validators. But as far as I know, that's in a centralized way as well. They've not even released the information of what they're doing about storing their forced exit messages. So that then, Rocket Pool's trying to work to increase decentralization. We're not trying to introduce new centralizing forces to the protocol. So that's one of those issues that, if we do get forced exits earlier in a permissionless decentralized way that works, then we as a community will definitely jump on that. However, I don't think Rocket Pool really wants to incorporate those centralizing forces when we're working so hard on removing them from the protocol as it stands.
Okay. Well, stay tuned. So we're at 28 minutes, and we're just getting on now to the next big topic, and this is Jasper's. He made a big splash yesterday with his hybrid theory, Rocket Pool's middle way between native liquid restaking and pure staking, and of course, he's talking about a Rocket Pool Eigenlayer integration, and he's got a long, Mirror, a post on Mirror, where he goes into all the details of his proposal. He also did a Twitter thread, which perhaps we'll use this to kind of highlight some of the major components of what he's proposing. So, given that we're a little short on time, and I wish we had more, let's just do, what's a TLDR of what Jasper's proposing here?
The basic idea is that Rocket Pool has a whole army of node operators. We've got 2,500-ish node operators, 3,500 nodes on Rocket Pool, and using those node operators to also run Eigenlayer services would be in the best interest of Rocket Pool and Eigenlayer, because they would basically help each other. So Rocket Pool would help Eigenlayer grow. Eigenlayer, people would want to be Eigenlayer node operators, so they'll come to Rocket Pool to do that, which would help Rocket Pool grow. So the idea Jasper has is basically, you could marry these two protocols in a sense, and in that marriage, then you can really grow massively. Like you can, help both Eigenlayer scale like to huge levels that they can't even really, I think, imagine right now, and also potentially like boost Rocket Pool like into hyperdrive. So that's kind of like a very, very, very high level kind of idea of what's happening here. And then as you get closer and closer to the details, you'll see that there's a lot of complexities here, and like the kind of services that would be running, and how how bonding would work, and how who would get claims on certain kinds of the collateral levels and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a
Right.
whole lot of details here. But Jasper's tweet thread here, like I'm going to go through the Mirror article and the tweet thread on Thursday's episode, like when we're recording it, today's episode of Rocket Fuel. So
Sure.
that's a little bit outside the scope, I think, of the weekly orbit here. But I'll go through the full post, like spend a lot of time going through it and kind of explaining it to my audience about what's actually happening here, and then what we can then everybody will know kind of what Jasper's presenting here and like what his ideas are. But overall, like this is a really interesting suggestion. However, it's not one without controversy. So
Sure.
maybe we can talk about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So essentially, if you sign up as a node operator for Rocket Pool, you could have the choice of also providing services for Eigenlayer at
Mm-hmm.
a additional risk, but also an additional reward. So you can want to
Yeah.
boost your yield, you can opt into that. So then the objection, let's talk about some of the controversy. I don't know if it's controversy. I would just say it's some pushback. Valdorff kind of, in response to Jasper, he highlights risk, talks about you got some maintenance risk, cascade risks, you got brand risk, and then rewards. There's so much money or so much ETH piled into Eigenlayer right now. Some have questioned about, well, how much actual yield are you going to get? And they go into some of the details here.
Yeah.
So he says the TLDRs, there are better risk reward plays available to Rocket Pool to increase node operator APY and make Rocket Pool stronger. And he has a link to his couple of his his bonding curve and
Yeah.
another proposal he had.
Yeah.
So to be continued. We're going to get into this more.
Well, if you
This
scroll
probably
down just a
deserves
tiny
a
bit, if you scroll down just a tiny bit, Jasper responds and he says, no, you've gone too far. Jasper's first response, scroll back. Yeah, he says, we'll respond properly tomorrow, but I just want to say that tokenomics research is much, much bigger than Eigenlayer. And that's why, we've spent 20 minutes talking about the tokenomics stuff, because the impact the tokenomics work will have on Rocket Pool is potentially like, astronomical, like huge, gargantuan.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Eigenlayer still has a lot of question marks around it. So that's why even Jasper's, acknowledging that the potential here is definitely like the tokenomics work, that is going to be really exciting. So that's one thing
Yeah.
to keep an eye on. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, don't forget about node set. Node set. That's another thing where you can opt in as a node operator. Hey, I want to provide services for node set, get some additional yield. Kind of a similar thing that Jasper is
And
proposing here.
it looks like the node set boost to the node operator APY or APR. I never know which one it is, but the rewards that will offer potentially could be bigger than the Eigenlayer rewards. As Val was crunching numbers here, like I saw Nick S, who's part of the node set team. He was saying yesterday that you could come to Rocket Pool with one validator that's 8 LEB, 8 ETH validator, and then NodeSet could potentially give you up to 20 validators on top of that. So, if you have one 8 ETH validator, you're getting like X rewards, but if you add in the rewards of all the others, you're going to get multiples of that X, like 2X potentially, or like maybe even more rewards for your thing. So as an
Right.
APY percentage, like Eigenlayer probably isn't going to be offering those kind of like amazing returns that that NodeSet will be able to. especially for the very
Right.
small node operators.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, there is a RPIP 38,
Mm.
which Patches is posted here. This is about, do you think the PDAO should appeal the decision by the GMC for the grant into the Eigenlayer research? And right now, out of the 40 voters, it's 60% I support PDAO voting on it, and 40% says I do not support. So it's a little confusing. I had to read it twice.
Yeah.
So basically what it's saying is, if you said I vote for a PDAO vote, what you're saying is I want to have a vote. The GMC's already approved this research. We're not approving anything about Eigenlayer. We're just saying, hey, here's some money to do some research into Eigenlayer integration. Do you want to challenge that GMC vote? That's if you said yes. And if you say no, you know what? I like the GMC. Let them do what they're doing. They've already proved it. Let's see what the research provides. That's a no vote. So right now, majority of people here are saying no. I want the PDAO to kind of appeal this. So I guess what that shows, just as a kind of a snapshot, high level, is that there is some concern amongst the community regarding Eigenlayer. Would that be
I
correct?
Yeah, I think so. I think that people are kind of divided. So this vote was always going to happen. Like even with the GMC awarding the bounty, we said that after milestone 0, which is the research phase, then we would open it up to the PDAO. Whereas this challenge from Patches is just bringing that earlier to see if we even want to spend $10,000 on the research at all. And the people who have voted here, who said I do not support moving to a PDAO vote, those people want the research to happen. However, the people who do support a PDAO vote, it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want the research to happen. It just means that they want the PDAO to be involved in the decision making process from the beginning. So it
Gotcha.
depends on where that line comes down. I don't think you can necessarily extrapolate this into a vote for this RPIP and
Right.
saying that this was happening. But the RPIP suggests that there'll be 2 votes potentially. So there'll be 1 vote. Should the GMC fund this? And if that is yes, then that will trigger a second vote. If it's no, then that will just remove the bounty completely. Now, the second vote then will be, do you want the GMC to fund this only for milestone 0, which is the research phase, or do you want the GMC to fund it for, the whole bounty? And then that will bring up its own issues. So, yeah, this is going to be like a slightly drawn out process, but
Yeah.
it's where we are right now. And what the at this stage, with this vote, what you're checking for is promising sentiment. Now, that's kind of an ambiguous term, really, but the idea is that as long as 20-30% of people who responded that way, then that's promising enough sentiment for it to go to a vote. So this is definitely strong sentiment to go to a vote. So it's likely we'll be seeing a vote on this in the coming days. It looks like RPIP 38 will go to a snapshot vote within the next week, I presume, and then that'll run for 2 weeks, and then we'll know where we stand with that whole thing.
Yeah. So, okay, we've covered quite a bit today. Let's talk about our wins for the week, and we'll end it. My win, it's kind of on a personal note. I've alluded to this before. I have slowly transitioned from having my mini pools at all nodes to my own at-home Proteus node. I am now and that has now completed. It is done. It took months and months of me just dragging my feet and slowly getting through it, but I am now a full-fledged Rocket Pool node operator at home with
Wonderful.
nothing left on all nodes. It's been a slow transition, but that is my win. I feel I'm kind of a normie for you folks out there. I had an interest in computers when I was a kid back in the early 90s, and then I kind of dropped it for other things in life. A lot of you people have pursued that as a career or as a hobby or interest. I have not. So some of this was intimidating for me, but I feel a sense of relief and confidence, and I feel great about it. So to those who I've reached out to for technical assistance over the months, I say thank you. And so that's my win. What's yours?
My win is that today, just a few minutes before the time of recording, we got the announcement of the Denkun update on the Ethereum. Now, that will be taking place on March 13th. The reason why that's my win is because that is going to have an EIP in there. The blob stuff is great. I love that. But the one that I'm really excited about is the beacon state root EIP, and that will allow the consensus layer and the execution layer to communicate with each other, and that's going to open up some really cool things for Rocket Pool. Like, it'll help us remove some ODAO duties probably, but one of the main things that will help is for node set to work, and that is what I'm really excited about. So this is just the next step on the path now to Houston and node set's launch. So working from the Cancun dates, it seems like that's going to happen on March 13th if everything goes well. I think Houston will probably come about maybe a few weeks, potentially a month after that. So sometime at the end of March, middle of April, and then I think we'll get node set going live about a month, maybe 6 weeks after that as well. So maybe sometime end of April or sometime in May, most likely. Of course, that's when there's also the Ethereum ETF potentially getting approved. So I'm just really bullish for this whole period. I think, the next few months, if everything goes well, is going to be an extremely exciting time for Rocket Pool and for Ethereum. And I'm totally here for it. And I'm hyping myself up already. So
Yeah.
it works nicely.
Don't forget that Bitcoin halving is coming up in April as well.
Oh yeah, I don't care
Some
about
more
Bitcoin.
bullish
Like that's like whatever, like pet rock. No, I'm kidding. Of course, that'll be a nice catalyst as well, for the crypto space as a whole. But all of that stuff, like, it paints for a very bullish few months. So I'm really excited. Yeah.
Well, thanks for watching and listening and being part of the Rocket Pool community. Until next week, we'll see you then, and we'll see you. Bye bye.
Yes. See you. Bye.